Hello students, welcome to Unacademy platform. Uh, this is the largest online learning platform that we have, which provides structured courses for almost every examination in the country. Okay, here in this very platform you have daily live classes, then there are structured courses, live tests and quizzes are there, and there is unlimited access once you subscribe. You can also download the app where you have the same courses available. Okay, so this is about me. My name is Amit Pratap Singh. I have more than 5 years of experience in training and guiding the candidates for UPSC Civil Services examination. I specialize in political science optional, various sections of general studies 2 and 3. I also take classes on essay and current affairs. I have appeared for the interview stage multiple times, and that is why I also guide students for personality tests, and I also conduct personality development program. This is my Unacademy link where you can ping me with regard to any doubts that you have with any of my lectures, and this is my Unacademy profile. You can go and see that also. These are the top educators that we have. You can go to the website, the YouTube channel, and app to have access to the courses offered by these educators. These are the different subscription plans, and for example, you have this very plus course. Here you get live classes, test series, unlimited practice, structured schedule. If you go for Iconic, you have this personal course, daily mains, question answer writing practice, study plan, and personalized feedback. These are different subscription plans for the different durations. Okay, so you can choose these very plans according to your requirement. While subscribing to these very plans, you can use this very code Amit PS to get 10% discount. Okay, you will get 10% discount by using this very code. Again, these are the different subscription plans. You can go according to your requirement, and if you go for them, then apply this coupon code to avail 10% discount. Okay, again, these are different subscription plans. These are the list of optional subjects that we have in Unacademy. So I am going to take PSIR optional, but other educators are taking different other optional. Again, these are the different subscription plans for the different durations for UPSC Civil Services examination. If you go, if you choose any particular subscription plan, you can apply this very code that is Amit PS. Avail 10% discount. Okay, now coming to the lecture. We were having discussion in Plato. In Plato, we discussed about his time and space. Okay, I told you how that is important in order to understand any particular thinker fully. And then we discussed about his methods or methodology. Okay, we also discussed about the school of thought. Okay, and there I told you that Plato actually belongs to the school of idealism. He does not actually belong to the school of idealism. He does not just belong to the school of idealism. He's actually the of father of political idealism. Okay, father of political idealism. And then we moved towards his theory. So we studied the theory of knowledge, and there you came to know about the meaning of virtuous knowledge. That was given by Socrates. But I told you that whatever we know about Socrates is actually coming from Plato only, and that is why I use the word according to Plato or according to Socrates almost in interchangeable manner. Then we also studied about his theory of forms. Theory of forms. Okay. Now, in this very theory of forms, we found that it is so influenced by the theory of knowledge given by Socrates that both can be understood together. Okay, so you can say theory of forms was actually the extension of the theory of knowledge given by Socrates. Theory of forms given by Plato, you can say, is a kind of extension of the theory of knowledge given by Socrates. Okay, now in theory of forms, you studied about ideas. Okay, you also studied about two kinds of words. Two kinds of words. First is the ideal word, and the second is this visible word, sensory word. Okay, so first was the ideal word. This ideal word was word of ideas, and then there was visible word, visible word. This word was word of matter, word of matter. Just to have a recap, this ideal word consisted of forms or ideas, and this was consisted of forms of forms. Okay, forms of forms. Okay, here everything existed in its most ideal form, and here in this very word, things were constantly changing. Things were constantly changing. They were constantly. There was nothing fixed in this very word, and that I told you is the proof that this is not real. This word is not real. Visible word, sensory word is not real. This is the real word because things are constant here. They are fixed. They are of fixed nature and permanent nature. Knowledge being objectively real is going to reside in the word of ideas because here, because knowledge is permanent. Knowledge is permanent. Opinion, on the other hand, which keeps on changing, is going to reside in the realm of visible word. Okay, realm of matter. Okay, now in theory of forms, if you recall, theory of forms, if you recall, actually the purpose of this very theory gets connected, or you can say Plato actually comes out with this kind of theory ultimately to connect it with his political theory, whereby he is actually trying to establish an ideal state. Okay, an ideal state, and he also makes claim that you are going to study later that this ideal state is going to be ruled by philosophers. Okay, so this is going to be ruled by philosophers. Sorry. Now, why this is going to be ruled by philosophers is because these philosophers are the people who know about the idea of ideal state or idea of good governance or good state. Only those people who have access to the ideal world can actually know about the ideas of the things. If they know the idea of the ideal world, that is the only way they can actually establish the ideal world here in this very visible world. So, because philosophers know how to rule, that is why they should be the people to actually rule over others. Okay, why philosophers know how to rule? Only because philosophers, through their struggle that I discussed in Plato's allegory of cave, through their struggle, have attained this very wisdom, this very knowledge, which is fixed, permanent, unchanging. They also have come to realize that there is something called good that exists in objectively real sense. Okay, that kind of realization is making them capable to know and making them capable also for ruling over people. Okay, because they have this very knowledge of the ideal state. Getting it? So what I'm trying to say here is this: that his theory of forms is actually getting connected to his political theory, whereby his ultimate scheme is to establish the ideal state. Now, this very ideal state is to be governed, is to be ruled by the philosopher king. And in order to establish, or in order to establish it logically, he says that philosophers should rule the ideal state only because it is only because philosophers have the idea of the ideal world, and that is why they have access to the knowledge of the ideal state. Because no, because they know the idea of ideal state, that is why they are the only people who can establish the ideal state. Okay. Now, as I told you, that Plato adopts deductive methodology, and I told you the meaning of deduction here. Deductive methodology will involve preconceived conclusions also called philosophical method. And philosopher here travels from general to particular. Now, this very preconceived conclusions are going to be applied, connected with particularities. Okay, so Plato, in order to establish an ideal state that he has concluded in his mind, is going to the particularities now. That is, what is the theory of what should be the form of education, what should be the how the institution of property is going to be governed, what should be the principle of justice, and all that. So now every theory that we are going to see is actually to be seen as the particularities that Plato is going to refer to in order to realize his already concluded idea of justice, idea of ideal state. Okay, or in order to install ideal state. Getting it? So we have to see Plato's idea of justice by considering this very point. Okay. Now, again, I would suggest that you must have realized by this time that Plato is a very mystical philosopher. Okay, so he has come out with solutions of the problems in a completely different and in a way which is completely different from the solutions and the suggestions which come from other thinkers. So same will stand true in case of theory of justice also, or the idea of justice also. So the kind of justice that you actually know, okay, justice being a juridical concept, a political concept, legal concept, justice being something which makes you capable of enjoying your rights, okay, all that is not going to be employed here, okay. All that understanding is not something which is going to be useful in order to understand the justice idea of justice that Plato comes out with. His idea of justice is also going to be a completely different thing. Okay, so let us start understanding his idea of justice or theory of justice. Okay, now his idea of justice is found in the book Republic, and for this Barker, one of the ardent reader of Plato, makes a statement that republic in Greek meant justice and should not be understood in Latin sense, meaning the state or polity. Okay, when this very word republic comes before you, you associate with this very word with polity or a particular kind of political order where the head of the state is elected. Okay, so India is a republic because head of the state here, that is the president, is an elected office. Although indirect election is there, but still it is an elected office. It is not something which is inherited. Okay, but a republic word, or the republic word, if it translated in Latin, it means state. Okay, so if you go by the Latin meaning of the word republic, then it's connected to the political order and polity and all. But in Greek, this means justice. What this statement is actually trying to show is that the republic, when it was written, okay, it actually had connotations related to justice, or it talked about it, it referred to the conception of justice and not the polity or the state. Okay, now Plato's idea of justice is not legal or judicial. Okay, Plato's idea of justice is not legal or judicial. For example, in legal sense, you have various kinds of justice. For example, there is distributive justice, then there is corrective justice, then there is retributive justice. All those are legal and judicial concepts, juridical concepts. So Plato's idea of justice, when you will see, is not related to distributive or corrective or even corrective or retributive. It is, in that sense, it is not legal or juridical. It is not related to the realm of rights and duties also. So, for example, in your case, in case of people generally, what happens that if their rights or they have been deprived from their rights, they said that justice has been snatched away from them. Okay, now because injustice has been done on them. So, for example, if someone's right to freedom of speech is actually infringed upon, it is said that injustice or opposite to justice has been done. Now, in order to establish justice, that person whose fundamental right has been violated should be delivered, or his fundamental right should be safeguarded, and only then we will be able to say that justice has been delivered. But here in this case, enjoyment of rights or the performance, enjoyments of rights is not actually related to justice. It is not about the enjoyment rights here. It is not about securing the rights to the people. The idea of justice in Plato is not about the securing of rights to the people. Okay. Now, it is also not confined by the limits of law. The idea of justice that Plato is coming out with is not going to be defined or by law. It is not going to be confined by the law boundaries of law. Okay, it is not legal. It is not juridical. It is something else. We are going to see that. It is also not confined to social ethics. Okay, on various fronts, rights, as we will see in the upcoming lectures, are the claims well acknowledged by the state. In other cases, it is said that rights become rights only when the claims, social claims, are acknowledged by society. And if those social claims are violated by anyone, then it goes against the ethics of society, or it goes against social ethics. And in that case, we say that justice has been uh, encroached upon, or some injustice has been done. Okay, so in order to rectify that very mistake, some corrective steps have to be taken. But all that belongs to justice, which is actually confined to social ethics, or whose origin is in conventions or societal ethics. But in Plato's scheme of things, justice again is not going to be confined to social ethics. Getting it? So it is not legal, it is not juridical, does not exist in the realm of duties. It is not limited by law. Okay, it is the boundaries of law are not going to confine the conception of justice. It is not actually confined even by the social ethics. Okay, then what is justice? What according to justice is? First of all, as I told you, that the idea of justice or theory of justice we found in the word republic. Then you already know by this time that the republic has been written in dialogue form, and it is actually a dialogue between Socrates and various other people. And there, Socrates adopt the method of dialectics, that is asking questions and then analyzing the answers, okay, finding the logical fallacies there, and then concluding. So the theory of justice that actually we are talking about is emerging in that very dialogue only between Socrates and other characters, for example, Cephalus, Polemarchus, who are father and son. Okay, then Thrasymachus is there, and then Glucon and Adeimantus. So these are the brothers of Plato. These two are brothers of Plato. Cephalus, Polemarchus are father son, and Thrasymachus is another person. Okay, so theory of justice that emerges in Plato is actually emerging from the dialogues and the dialectics that is taking place between Socrates and these people, Cephalus, Polemarchus, Thrasymachus, Glucon, and Adeimantus. Okay, now what happens that when this discussion starts, that what is justice? The question here is being investigated is what is justice? Now, Cephalus, Polemarchus, they subscribe to a form of justice which has been accepted by society for a long period of time, which is Cephalus says here that justice is doing doing proper to others, proper to others. This is coming from Cephalus. He is saying that justice is doing proper to others. Doing proper to others means this is explained by Polemarchus. Polemarchus is the son of Cephalus. So Polemarchus says that justice is doing good to friends and harm to enemies. Okay, so justice is what? According to Cephalus, it is doing proper to others, means doing what is proper to others. Then what is justice according to Polemarchus? Polemarchus extends this view of Cephalus and says that justice is doing good to friends and harm to enemies. Okay, so good to friends and bad to enemies. Now, Plato responds to these very arguments by saying that justice is something which is universal, okay, and it is universally good. It is universally good. It is good in universal sense, and for that reason, it can't be happen that it is going to deliver good for some and bad for some others. So even though at how the outset it seems very justified to say that justice involves doing good to your friends and doing bad to your enemies, Plato is of the opinion that justice is universally good and that is why it is going to do good to all. It is not going to differentiate when it comes to the doing good part. Okay, so justice will ensure that whenever something is being done, it is being done for the good of others, be it enemies or friends. Okay, because it is universally good. Okay, remember that justice in Plato's scheme of things is actually related to fairness. Okay, it is more of a concept related to goodness rather than any rather than anything which provides you any legal right or any special privilege to enjoy. Okay, so it is more of a normative concept rather than a legal one. Okay, but not a normative in societal social ethical terms. So it is not going to give you the norms of society, okay, which are going to be employed for its governance. I simply mean here is that justice in Plato's scheme of things simply can be compared with fairness or goodness. Okay, so in that sense, it is universally good. That is why Plato counters the argument of Cephalus and Polemarchus, saying that it is not possible for justice to be good for some and bad for others because it is universally good. Okay, now next comes Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus comes out with the notion of justice, the conception of justice, which is in ancient Greek state is also called conventional theory of justice. Conventional theory of justice. So what statement, what kind of argument Thrasymachus is putting? See this here. Thrasymachus sees that justice is in the interest of the stronger. What does it mean? Okay, so this is actually the conventional or extreme notion of justice. More, see, when Cephalus and Polemarchus' notion of justice was also conventional or conventional theory of justice, but this is both conventional as well as radical notion of justice. Okay, conventional in the sense that it has also existed, like the kind of justice that was being put forward by Cephalus and Marcus. Similarly, this kind of notion also existed. So, along with conventional, this is also radical. This is radical because it is giving you the extreme view of justice. Okay, where it is being claimed that it is in the interest of the strong. Now, the corollary of the argument is this that justice is going to be in the interest of the rulers. Why? Because if justice is in the interest of the stronger, then it is going to be definitely in the interest of the most strong or the strongest. Then who are the people who the one who is strongest is actually the ruler, and that is why justice is in the interest of the ruler. Then Thrasymachus explains that why it is in the interest of the ruler. He says that it should be in the interest of the ruler, or it is actually in the interest of ruler because rulers rule because because they know the art of ruling. Okay? So because rulers know the art of ruling, that is why they are rulers. Okay? And because they are rulers, they are strong, and justice is in the interest of the strong. Now, Plato is going to accept the view that rulers rule because they know the art of ruling, or rulers should be allowed to rule because they know the art of ruling. Again, recall Plato's theory of forms. Now, rulers, if they know the art of ruling, or if they know how to rule, that means what? They are having knowledge. And if they are having knowledge, means that means what? They have access to something which is objectively good. Now, if they have access to something which is objectively good, they also have the access to the world of ideas, which is eternal, permanent, fixed. Okay, in nutshell, you can say that if rulers actually know the art of ruling, they actually know how to rule, then that means they are people with knowledge. That means they are philosophers. That is why Plato accepts Thrasymachus' view that rulers should rule, or rulers rule because they know the art of ruling, because they know how to rule. Okay, but Plato does not accept the extension of this very argument that it is in the interest of the stronger, or it is in the interest of ruler. Now, what kind of counter argument is provided by Plato here? That is something that is interesting. Now, understand, Thrasymachus' view is this, that it is in the interest of the stronger, and in that sense, it is going to be in the interest of the rulers, because rulers are justified in ruling because of the knowledge they have regarding this very question, that how to rule. Everything seems to be okay with Plato, but Plato is not able to accept this idea of justice, because Plato says that agreed that rulers are actually the people who know the art of ruling, and that is why their rule is justified. But he reminds Thrasymachus that rulers, although are justified in the ruling because they know the art of ruling, are not ruling because of or to fulfill their own interest. Okay, so rulers, even though they are justified in ruling because they know the art of ruling, are not ruling in their own interest. They are ruling in order to fulfill the interest of everyone. Okay, so even when they are justified in ruling because they know the art of ruling, they are not ruling to fulfill their own interest or to fulfill their own purpose, but they are ruling in order to fulfill the purpose or the interest of everyone in the society. In that sense, again, justice is something which is going to be universal. It can't be in the interest of any particular section of society, be it strong or weak. Okay, so by using that very logic, Plato says that justice, this definition of justice, that justice is in the interest of the stronger, is not true, because justice is universal and it is in the interest of everyone. Okay, so from Cephalus and Polemarchus, the conclusion that we draw is that justice is universally good. Okay, it can't happen that it is good for some and bad for others. From Thrasymachus' point of view, by countering Thrasymachus' point of view, the second conclusion that was derived was this, that justice is universally beneficial, and it is going to be universal in the sense that it is going to fulfill the interest of everyone in the society, or it is in the interest of all and not any particular section of society. Okay, now comes Glucon and Animantus. So these two people, they are giving another version of justice. Okay, so the kind of justice, the definition that they come out with, actually seems to be in opposition to what we have seen in case of Thrasymachus. Now you know that Thrasymachus says that there's justice in the interest of the stronger. By contrast to this view, Glucon and Adimantus are saying that justice is in the interest of weaker. Okay, so this is the proposition of Glucon and Adimantus. These two are the brothers of Plato. Now, Glucon went on to explain this very notion, okay, this very theory of justice. He says that the poor of the society, okay, poor or have-nots of the society, actually are the people who suffer a lot or who face uh, the largest amount of exploitation taking place against them. And it is the rich and powerful who are going to exploit the poor. That is why poor make a contract, comes into contract and agreement with rich and powerful that they are not going to be suffered or they will not indulge in the exploitation of each other. Okay, getting it? So poors are actually making a contract with the rich and powerful that they are not going to, or no one is going to be exploited by the other section. Okay, so this kind of agreement is being initiated by the poor or have-nots or less powerful in the society. Means those who are weaker in the society. Two things are involved here. In that sense, this very justice is going to be in the interest of the weaker. That is something which is coming from blue bond. But that is not actually the end of the discussion here, or end of the purpose of this very theory. The corollary of this very theory actually becomes like this, or it happens like this, that justice, because it is emerging out of the agreement or custom or tradition, or in this very sense, contract. Okay, contract among rich and poor, or between powerful and weaker. In that sense, justice is not only in the interest of weaker, it is also artificial. So it is also artificial. Getting it? So according to Glucon and Adimantus, justice is in the interest of weaker and it is artificial. It is artificial in the sense that it is a product of the custom, traditions, okay, contract. Getting it? But now Plato has already concluded that justice can't be in the interest of any particular section of society, be it strong or weak. Okay, that is something that emerged when it was debated with Plato, with Thrasymachus. So justice is not in the interest of the weaker. That is one. Our justice is not in the interest of weaker alone. It is in the interest of all. That has been concluded. Now Plato again says that justice is also not artificial. It is natural. So he opposes Glucon and Adimantus on two grounds. First, it is not in the interest of weaker alone. Second, justice is not artificial. That is to say that justice is not the result of customs, traditions, conventions, and contract or in the society. Okay, it is natural. It naturally exists in the society. Getting it? So now this is the kind of dialogue that takes place in Republic. So far as every theory is concerned, or so far as the theories that we are going to consider are concerned. Okay, so here again you saw a very good glimpse of the dialectics in play. Okay, what you saw here is this, that uh, the question is being put before these very people and they are answering, they are trying to come out with the answer. Now, those answers are being countered, or the fallacies in their argument is going to be exposed and corrected in the very next dialogue, in the very next statement, in the very next argument. This way, they together are actually concluding what is the theory of justice. Okay, because the counter argument is coming from Socrates, in that sense, it is coming from Plato. That is why we are saying that it is a theory of justice by Plato. But see how this is emerging from dialogue, or this is happening by the application of dialectics and reason. Okay, now what is the idea of justice according to Plato? We have just seen that justice is universal, justice is universally good, justice is something which is in the interest of all. Okay, so these are the conclusions that we have drawn from the previous slide. Now, what else is Plato has got to say about justice? We are going to see that. Understand. Justice does not consist only in adherence to laws because it is based on inner nature of human spirit. Okay, so Again, as I told you, that the conception of justice in Plato is not legal or juridical, then it is also not going to be decided by the legislations or laws. So, adherence to laws or their avoidance is not going to decide justice or injustice. Next comes, it is also not the victory of the stronger over the weaker. Okay, because it is also not about the victory of stronger over the weaker, because it protects weaker against the stronger. These kind of statements become very important in order to write good answers. Okay, so you should focus on the argument also and should try to remember it in order to write good answer. Then justice simply means righteousness. Okay, righteousness or fairness. It is more of a performance of duties and enjoyment, and not the enjoyment of rights. Or it is more of a performance of duty rather than the enjoyments of right. Okay, एक typo है यहाँ पास, rather than the enjoyment of rights. It is more of a performance of duty than the enjoyment of rights. So it is not actually about the enjoyment of rights. It is actually related to the performance of duties. Now, how it is related to the performance of duties, we are going to see that later. But because it is related to the performance of duty, it doesn't mean that it is related to the realm of duties. Okay, it is related to the performance of duties for some other sense. We are going to see that in few minutes. But it is definitely not about enjoyment of rights. I already discussed. Now, this very conception of justice, which is more of a performance of duties rather than the enjoyment of rights, comes closer to Gandhian view of justice. Okay, Gandhian view of justice. Okay, getting it? So Gandhi, when we study about Gandhiji, he also comes out with similar theory of justice. Now see the next statement. It is individuals' contributions to society according to his abilities. As we will see that Plato, in order to establish justice, is going to ensure that the individual who is best fitted by the nature itself for any particular task, if he is allowed to perform any task, then we can say that particular justice has been done in his case. That is the outer part, and he will do justice with himself if he is going to do that very task where he specializes the most, or in which domain, in the domain in which he is best fitted by the nature itself. Okay, so for example, it is about the predisposition of individuals. One individual might be predisposed to, say for example, political activity. Then justice will lie in for him, justice will lie to be actually able to perform political activity. And for the outer, for the system, justice will actually include to justice will it will be called that justice has been done only when those people who are predisposed to the political activity are actually having freedom to pursue those political activities in the best possible way. Getting it? So that is what we mean by justice here, that it is individual's contribution to society according to his abilities. For Plato, justice is both private as well as public virtue. Okay, so for example, if one is best fitted by the nature to do certain task, then justice is going to be a private virtue, as if that particular person who is best fitted for any particular task is actually doing that particular task, we will say that justice as a private virtue has been achieved in his case. Now, in the very same example, the individual who is best fitted by the nature to do any particular job, if the system ensures, or the public at large ensures, public policy at large ensures that that individual is able to perform that very task in which he is best fitted by nature, we will see the public virtue of justice going to be delivered in that very same case. In that sense, it is both a private as well as public virtue. Okay. Now, Plato is coming out with his idea of justice. Okay, and this is going to be very interesting debate. Let us see here. Now, he, as I told you, is also influenced by Pythagoras. And here, Pythagoras, we are not talking about the Pythagorean theorem, we are actually talking about the philosophy of Pythagoras. So, Pythagoras actually came out with this idea of three classes and three types of souls. Okay, so here here Plato is saying that uh, every human soul has three qualities: reason, spirit, and appetite, with justice as the fourth virtue which balances everything. Okay, every soul में क्या होता है? There are three qualities. First क्या है? Reason, the ability to reason. Then second is spirit. Okay, this is related to valor or bravery. The third is appetite. So these are the three qualities. Now there is justice as the fourth virtue, which balances these three. But balance doesn't mean that all those qualities are going to exist in uh, essentially proportionate way. Okay, so that all three have one third of the space here. No, it is nothing like that. In every soul, one of the qualities is predominant. So some people will be having reason as the dominant quality, the ability to come out with arguments and counter arguments. Okay, the other section of population might be having spirit as the dominant quality, and then there will be people who are having appetite as the dominant quality. Now, individuals with reason as the dominant quality would constitute the ruling class, and virtue of such class is wisdom. Okay, every quality that you are seeing here is actually connected to particular virtue. So, individuals having reason as the predominant quality are going to be the ruling class people. Okay, and virtue of such soul is going to be wisdom. Okay, and individual having predominant quality in form of appetite would constitute the auxiliaries, that is soldiers class. Okay, and the virtue of them being valor or courage. Okay, and people with appetite as the dominant quality, the third one, appetite as the dominant quality, they are going to get reflected towards material things. Okay, they are going to be attracted towards material things, and they will have appetite as the most dominant quality, and that is why the respective virtue that they are going to have is moderation. Okay, temperance. So that very class is going to constitute a class of artisans and tradesmen and businessmen. Okay, traders. Now, as I told you that those souls uh, which have appetite as the dominant quality are going to have temperance and moderation as the virtue. Okay, this is the virtue of which class? Class of artisans and tradesmen. Okay, these were artisans or the producer class. Those in whom the spirit was dominant quality were soldiers, and virtue of such soul was the courage, which implies the ability to hold on to one's conviction and beliefs in the adverse times. Okay, these are going to be the auxiliaries or the soldiers. Okay, so again, if I just just help you in recalling the things, here we are studying about the idea of justice, and that idea of justice is actually influenced by the Pythagoras, uh, Pythagoras theorem, or Pythagoras theory, where Pythagoras divides or classifies three classes and three kinds of souls. So Plato is borrowing that very idea and employing that idea here in this very idea of justice. Okay, then soldiers were also called auxiliaries. As I told you, that soldiers class is also called auxiliaries. Okay, and soldiers along with rulers, they together are called guardian class. Okay, so what is the meaning of they here? Means first rulers and the second soldiers. So they together are called guardian class. Okay, they together are called guardian class in Plato's scheme. So in ideal state, there will be three classes. First rulers, second soldiers, and third artisans or producer class. Class, auxiliary class, and producer class. Okay. Now, the basis of this very classification is that in all of these classes, the people there, they have some dominant quality. So rulers have the dominant quality in form of wisdom. Okay. Uh, uh, Reason, I'm sorry. And related virtue is wisdom. Now, soldiers have the dominant quality, that is of the dominant quality in soldier is spirit, and the related virtue is courage. Okay, and in producer class, the dominant quality is appetite, and the related virtue is temperance. So this is the classification. Now, see that these are the rulers. What is these? This is the class. Okay, class of people. So and this is the task that they are going to perform. Okay, and this is the virtue. This is the virtue or quality, virtue and dominant quality. The rulers are going to rule, that is their task. Okay, ruler class is going to rule, that is their task. And the dominant quality in ruler class is wisdom. Okay, and the virtue is the dominant quality in ruler classes, I'm sorry, it is reason, and the related virtue is wisdom. The dominant quality in auxiliaries, which are also called soldiers, is what? It is spirit, spirit, and the related virtue is courage. What they are going to do? They will be the people in military, police, enforce the rules. Here it is rules actually. So they are going to enforce the rules of the rulers. Then there is producer class. What they are going to do? They are going to manufacture goods and engage in trade. Now, what they have as a dominant quality? The dominant quality here is appetite. Okay, appetite. Now, what is the related virtue? The related virtue is moderation here. So this is the table that we have. This is actually the classification. Okay, now coming to the idea of justice, to find out its further details. Okay, now you can see here that justice for Plato simply means two things. This is very important. For Plato, justice simply means two things. First is proper stationing. This is the first point. And second is non-interference. Okay, this is the second point. Understand these 2 points well, and you will get the idea of justice put forward by Plato. So Plato's idea of justice simply means two things. The first is proper stationing, the other is non-interference. What is the meaning of proper stationing here? Proper stationing means one who is best fitted by nature for any particular task should be assigned with that very task. So, for example, if there is an individual, okay, he he has, for example, reason as the dominant quality. Okay, so reason is dominant as a quality in the soul of this very individual. So, by this very quality, by the dominance of this very quality in the soul of this very individual, it is clear that he is best fitted to rule. By nature, he is best fitted to rule. Proper stationing would be that this individual gets to become the ruler in the ideal state. If this happens, then the first condition of justice, that is proper stationing, is met. Okay, it is fulfilled. Now, what is the second condition, or what is the second meaning here? It is non-interference. Now, The meaning here is this, that individual in our case, in our example, is one who is best fitted to rule because of the dominant quality of reason in his soul. Okay, that is why if no interference is made with regard to his quest or with regard to his effort to become part of the ruling class, if that condition is met, then we will say that the second meaning is also fulfilled. So, proper stationing and non interference would ensure that the individuals with the dominant quality and respective job which they are best fitted by the nature itself are going to attain that very position without an interference from any side. If this happens, then justice as a virtue would be achieved both as a private level and as at the level of public. Okay, because if you recall, we just learned that in the scheme of Plato, justice is both a private as well as a public virtue. Okay, now coming to the next point. Justice in individual meant that every individual was assigned a place in the society according to one's dominant quality possessed by the individual. Okay, so for example, again recall in our case, this is the individual. This is the individual whose dominant quality or in whose soul we find the dominant quality as reason. So reason is the dominant quality in the soul of this very individual. In case of individual, justice would mean that he, this very individual, is assigned the task of ruling in the society. So he should be allowed to become part of the ruling class. If this happens, then what is happening here? Assigning of the task to this individual is happening by considering the dominant quality in his soul. If this happens, then justice in case of individual would be done. Okay, so this was about proper stationing and non-interference. Now coming to the next point, the whole idea of justice can be summarized as follows. Now, see this very point here. Justice is nothing but the principle that each should pursue a function for which one is best fitted by nature. Okay, so for the function one is fitted by nature, if that very thing is actually being realized, then justice is going to be achieved. So, what is justice here? Justice is just ensuring that individual would be provided with that very task or with that very function for which they are best fitted by the nature. Okay, and how to know that how to know that any individual is best fitted for what kind of task? It is going to be decided by the dominant value in their soul. Okay, now see the next point. Justice means specialization and excellence. Okay, how does it mean specialization and excellence? Again, consider the case of an individual. Okay, the same example. This individual has the reason as the dominant quality in his soul, and that is why he is best fitted to rule by nature. Okay, so the nature has provided him with this very dominant quality of reason. That is why by nature he is best fitted to rule. So, what is being claimed here is that this individual has a predisposition, a kind of innate quality to rule. Okay, a quality by birth to rule. Now, if this very individual is not provided with this kind of role in the ideal state or in any society, then whatever he is going to do will not be as good as would have been the case with him becoming the part of rulers. That means if you are good at something, if you have this very innate ability to do certain thing in a very good manner, then if you do anything else, then you are not going to specialize, you're not going to be very good at it. Now, if you have inborn ability, okay, a capability which has been by birth with you, uh, that is what I'm saying, that if you're predisposed towards something, and if you get to do that very task in your career also, then you are going to be excellent in that very task. Okay, because of your predisposition, because of your innate ability to do that particular task in the most efficient manner, it is also going to ensure that you will also specialize. Okay, so if all the individuals, all the people in a society are going to be assigned with the task in which they are best fitted by the nature itself, okay, for which they have this very predisposition, they have this innate ability or the capability which has been given to them by birth, by nature. If they are assigned to those very tasks, then it will promote specialization and it will also bring excellence. Getting it? So this very scheme of justice is also going to promote specialization and excellence in the society. Okay, now justice, next point, is like a bond that holds a society together. How it is going to hold a society together? Because, see, again, in a society, different individuals are there, and various kinds of tasks are to be performed in the society. Justice, the scheme of justice in Plato's theory, actually is bringing about a division of labor, okay, in the society. Now, this division of labor in the society is going to ensure that all the works, all the important tasks are being performed in a complementary manner. So there are people who are going to guard the borders of the state, auxiliaries. Then there are people who are going to rule the state by legislation, by adjudication, and by execution. And then there will be people who are going to indulge in production process. Now, in that sense, a kind of interdependence gets developed. That is going to make a society, or that is going to hold a society together. Okay. Now see the next point. It brings together individuals, classes, and the state into one frame. Okay, because all three classes of people are actually doing the task for which they are best fitted by the nature, and all of them are doing that under the umbrella of a state. Okay, so cumulative effect would be the welfare of the state as a whole. Okay, so individual, classes, and state all come into a single frame. Okay. Now, as I said, that this very scheme of justice, this very theory of justice in Plato's scheme leads to a division of labor, specialization, and efficiency. A division of labor, you have seen that it is very easy to understand that how different classes are going to perform the different tasks. Specialization because one is assigned the task according to his own predisposition, okay, according to his own innate ability that is being decided by the dominant soul in a dominant property, a dominant feature in the soul, a dominant virtue in the soul. And because they have this very predisposition, all the individuals belonging to different classes have the predisposition for the task which they have been assigned with. They are going to be efficient also. Okay, so this is very easy to understand now. Now, it is being claimed that his notion of justice implies a social virtue, a private and public ethics, and a moral dictate. It is a social virtue because it is going to be related, or it is going to uh, hold the society together, that is first. Then it is going to ensure that society together works for the welfare of individuals. Okay. Then it is a private and public ethic because when proper stationing is done, that is the first meaning of the justice that we just uh, did, then it will ensure that individual with the dominant quality is being assigned the task for which he is best fitted by the nature. If it is being done, then uh, there will not be any conflict inside the soul of that very individual. Okay, then it is a public ethic also because again non-interference. If you see the second meaning of the justice, if non-interference happens, that means justice is happening, and that will also ensure the public ethic. Okay, it is a moral dictate because it goes beyond the legal juridical approach of justice. or it goes beyond the realm of rights and duties. Okay, because justice in Plato's scheme of things is actually righteousness. Okay, it is fairness, or it is related to goodness. Also becomes a moral dictate. Okay, now coming to the next topic, that is myth of metals. So far, you came to know about Plato's theory of justice, how elaborate, how in a very elaborated manner, in a very descriptive manner, he analyzed the principle of justice, and he came out with a completely new theory of justice that you are not going to see in any other thinker. Okay, but if you see the basis of this very justice, the scheme of justice, the theory of justice, it is actually the classification of individuals in different classes. Now, these classification of individuals in different classes is actually based on this very belief that souls of different individuals have different dominant virtue. So, a class, for example, ruler class, the people there, the individuals belonging to the ruler class, have reason as the dominant virtue. Okay. Now, and similarly, when you see the auxiliaries, they have spirit as the dominant virtue. In producer class, it is the appetite which is the dominant virtue. Now, this was the basis of actually the real classification. But now, mm, Plato does not give any particular reasoning, any particular logic behind this very premise that leads to the classification of individuals on the basis of the dominant quality or dominant virtue in the soul. Plato is not going to give any logical explanation that how this happens, how this comes into being that individuals have any particular quality as a dominant quality in their soul. So this very premise of Plato was actually based on a myth. Okay, ये एक myth में based था, और वो myth क्या था, वो myth यहाँ पास डिस्कस किया गया है. मतलब Plato, when he's saying that dominant quality of an individual, be it reason or spirit or appetite, is going to decide what kind of task that individual is going to perform. That particular classification has no logical basis other than this very myth that we are going to discuss. Okay, so my question is this, that when Plato says that rulers are the people with reason as the dominant quality in their soul. Okay, agreed. But how at all? What is the logical argument? What is the proof that these souls have reason as the dominant quality, and that is why there should be the ruling class, or they should belong to the ruler's class? Here, Plato is coming out with a reason. Okay, but that is not actually a reason, that is a myth. Okay, so Plato founded his arguments that individuals differed in the aptitude and capacity on a myth. So, rulers are going to be different from producers and auxiliaries because they have different aptitude and different capacity. That different capacity is going to be decided by the dominant reason, that is the reason, dominant virtue, that is the reason in their soul. Okay, now that becomes the basis of this very different aptitude or different capacity that rulers have. But this actually is based on a myth. What is that myth? We are going to see that. Now here you can see that according to this very myth, all individuals beings are born of earth and their bodies were mixed with different metals. Okay, so this is actually the myth that Plato is coming out with. All individuals beings are born of earth and bodies were mixed with different metals. Okay, ruler class, that is the individuals with reason as the dominant quality, were made of gold. Okay, so this very class, the individuals who belong to this very ruler class, in our case, they have this very region as a dominant quality, because their souls are mixed with gold metal. Okay, their body and souls are going to be mixed with gold metal, that is gold. And similarly, soldiers and artisans were made of silver. So rulers are made of gold. This is the myth that Plato is coming out with, and that will actually be the reason why they should rule, and that is the reason why their soul has the reason as the dominant quality. The myth is what? Here, the myth is that rulers are made of gold. Okay, so their bodies are mixed with gold. The bodies of rulers are mixed with gold. This is the myth. Okay. Now, because those bodies are mixed with gold, that is why their souls are going to have reason as the dominant virtue. Similarly, auxiliaries bodies, the bodies of auxiliaries, that is soldiers, is made with silver, and that is why they are going to have spirit as the dominant quality in their soul. Similarly, producers are made, the body of the producers are made with copper, and that is why they are going to have appetite as the dominant quality in their soul. So this is actually the myth. Okay, now it might surprise you that Plato is actually making this very myth the basis of this very classification, on the basis of which he is coming out with his theory of justice. Okay, now that is why it is being criticized here. Now, Plato is not just coming out with the myth alone, he is going to suggest that the philosopher king who is entrusted with the task of assigning different roles to the individual should actually be contributing in spreading this very myth. So, philosopher king whose first love is philosophy, that is knowledge, okay, should be spreading this very myth in order to attain good in the society, in order to attain justice in the society, or you can say for the largest interest of the community. Okay, so what Plato is suggesting here, that philosopher king should actually spread this very myth. He should spread this very myth. Why philosopher king? Because it is the philosopher king who is going to assign different roles to the different individuals. Okay, so ultimately it also becomes clear that it is a philosopher king who is also going to declare that these individuals are made of gold metal, or these individuals are made of copper, and these individuals are made of silver. Now, philosopher Plato assigns, or Plato says that philosopher king should actually spread this myth of metal in order to attain the larger good of the society or community. So this was about myth of metals. Now by this time it is clear that Plato so far was very logical, very argumentative, very he employs all those dialectics. Okay, and ultimately it turns out that he himself is basing his theory of justice, the most important theory, one of the most important theory that he actually comes out with, on something which was a myth, okay, which was false, which was not true. And for this very reason, Nietzsche, okay, a very famous philosopher, criticized Plato for founding a justice society, or for attempting to establish a justice society, that is his ideal state, by using a myth or a lie. Okay, तो यहाँ नीचे क्रिटिसाइज करता है प्लेटो कि प्लेटो क्या कर रहा है, प्लेटो अपने आइडियल स्टेट को, ओके, अपनी एक जस्ट सोसाइटी को किसके उसकी नींव किसके ऊपर रख रहा है, उसकी नींव एक झूठ के ऊपर रख रहा है, एक मिथ के ऊपर रख रहा है, एक एक ऐसी बात के ऊपर रख रहा है, ऐसे फाउंडेशन के ऊपर रख रहा है जो सच नहीं है. ओके, एंड one of the staunchest critic of Plato, that is Karl Popper, okay, he vehemently opposes Plato on so many causes. Okay, Karl Popper, he says that the abuses of this very myth, okay, they outweigh, they have They outweigh its uses because system somehow shows the ruler to be superior to the ruled. Okay, so this was about myth of metals. Now we are coming to the next part. This is one very famous statement in Plato's theory. Okay, and question has also been asked on it. So we are going to see this. State is individual writ large. We are also going to see the meaning, and then we will relate it with theories of justice. Now, see the statement here. State is individual writ large. If you analyze the previous year questions, and that is something that I will actually insist upon because previous questions are going to be very useful so far as the preparation of this very paper is concerned. Preparation of PSI are concerned, you should actually see previous year questions, and through my lectures, you should be able to become very comfortable. Okay, you will become very comfortable in answering those very questions. If you feel any problem, then you should contact me. Okay, now state is individual writ large. What is the meaning of it? If something is something writ large, that means that very thing is the larger and bigger and more clear version of it. So, for example, in order to understand the meaning of this very statement, if I say that A is B writ large, okay, if I'm saying A is B writ large, that means this would mean that A is bigger and more bigger version of B. Okay, getting it? So if I'm saying that if Plato is saying that state is individual writ large, that would mean what? If you now compare it with this very statement that A is B writ large, that means A is bigger version of B. A is bigger version of B. Then state is individual writ large. It will translate into state is bigger version of individual. Now, bigger version of individual means what? If A is the bigger version of B, that would also mean, or we can say that it can also mean that A is the extension of B. Getting it? And for the same reason, here we can say that if state is the bigger version of individual, then that means that state is the extension of individual. So understand the point here. If A is B writ large, that means A is the bigger version of B. That means A is the extension of B. So that would mean that whatever is true for B is also going to be true for A. Okay. So if state is individual writ large, that is going to mean that state is bigger version of individual. That would mean that state is the extension of individual. And that would mean that if whatever is true for individual is also going to be true for state. Okay, getting it? Now, this should be very clear. Now, what this very statement actually means? This very statement is actually mean that whatever we philosophize about in case of individual, it is also going to be true in case of state also. Because state is individual writ large. Because state is nothing but the extension of individual. So whatever form of justice is going to be true in case of individual, that form of justice is also going to be true in case of state. Because state is made of different individuals, or state consists of collection of individuals, or it is simply a collection of individuals, then if we could ensure justice in case of every individual, then that would mean that justice at the level of a state has also been achieved. So, in order to establish justice at the level of a state, it is important to establish justice at the level of an individual and then continue establishing it at the level of all individuals. If we could replicate the justice that is delivered in case of individual for rest of the individuals, then the justice in the state would be established. Okay, getting it? So that is what it means here. So here again we are going to see what is written in the slides and we'll understand it. Okay, so state is an individual writ large. According to Plato, state does not come out of oak tree or rock. Means state does not come out of something which doesn't have life. Okay, which is with the okay means it is not something which emerges on its own. It resides in the mind of individual living in the states, and it is nothing but a collection of individuals who are organically related. Okay, so the meaning here is this, that state does not come out of oak tree or rock, means that it is not something that is going to exist even without individuals. It finds its meaning, it finds its existence only with the existence of individuals. Since for Plato every state is made of individuals, it follows that once the pattern of justice in a man can be replicated in several other men, the state automatically turn out to be a just one. Okay, that is what I'm saying. That if the aim is to establish justice in the state, what we need to make sure of is that we could establish justice in case of in all the individuals living in that very state. Okay. Now, again, see, as individuals have three qualities of reason, spirit, and appetite, with dominance of one particular quality. Okay, we have seen that ruler class has reason as the dominant quality, then auxiliaries have spirit as the dominant quality, and then traders or businessmen or they have appetite, or working class has the appetite as the dominant quality. With respective virtues. Okay, so what is the virtue of rulers? Wisdom. It is just for your revision. Then what is the virtue of soldiers? It is courage. And what is the virtue of traders? It is temperance. Okay, or moderation. So with respect to virtues, whereby fourth virtue, it is fourth, F-O-U-R-T-S. Fourth virtue is justice. That is, justice ensures the balance among all three. Okay, and I just told you that when we were studying that the claim here is this, that individuals has all three values, and justice actually ensures the balance there, and makes sure that only one particular quality is dominant. Okay, so in rulers, reason as the virtue is dominant. Okay, and it is possible only because fourth virtue, justice, also resides in individuals. This justice ensures the balance among all three, and also at the same time ensures that only one particular virtue is dominant. So this is the claim here. An ideal state has individuals belonging to three classes, which are rulers, soldiers, and artisans, that is producers. And harmony in the state would prevail if all individuals are assigned the job according to their predisposition. Okay, so harmony or justice or peace Everything in the society would prevail only if all individuals, are assigned the task according to their predisposition. And this predisposition is going to be decided by the dominant quality in their soul. Okay, that is going to decide what towards what they are predisposed to. Okay, so the justice as it stands true in case of individual will also prevail at the level of state as a whole because state is individual writ large. Okay, that is what we mean. That if it stands true in case of individual will also prevail at the level of state as a whole because state is nothing but the extension of individual. State is nothing but the bigger version of individual only. Okay. Okay. Next come Plato's theory of education. Now again see that I will again remind you that when we study about Plato's theory of forms, then the ultimate conclusion, if you recall, was this that rulers should be the philosophers. Okay, why? Because only philosophers know what is the idea of ideal state, and that is why only the philosophers would be able to establish the ideal state. Getting it? So the conclusion of the theory of forms was this that philosophers should actually rule the ideal state. Why so? Because it is the philosophers who know what is the idea of ideal state. Then we came to study about the theory of justice. And there also you saw that who are going to be the rulers? It is those individuals who have reason as the dominant quality and wisdom as the related virtue. Now, who are the people who are going to have reason as the dominant quality? Again, the philosophers. Getting it? The philosophers are going to have reason as the dominant quality, and that is why wisdom has the virtue, and that is why they are going to rule. They are going to be the people critical in establishing ideal state. Plato's ultimate project. Well, Plato's ultimate aim here. Okay, now understand one thing more. That if you recall that I have told you that Plato employs deduction as a methodology. So what is the deduction here? That he has already a preconceived conclusion regarding ideal state. Ideal state. Okay, and now why we are calling him deductive? Because he is going to relate particular from this very particular idea of ideal state by going to the particularities of it, that is theory of education, theory of justice, okay, and the institution of property and everything. So here again you would see that theory of education is also something which is going to actually fulfill his ultimate project, that is the installing or installing of ideal state, getting it, or the creation of ideal state. So here again you are going to see the deductive or the deduction in his theory. Now again, if you are able to recall that I told you that he also employs teleological method. Okay, teleological method. When I explained you about the teleological method, then I told you that teleological method or teleology would mean that there is an object with objective. Getting it? Object with an objective means the venture, the attempt here is being made to fulfill any particular purpose. Okay, so Plato's theory of education is actually a teleological venture. It is a teleological venture with a solid purpose, which a definite purpose. It is a teleological purpose. It is a teleological venture, teleological attempt. Okay, if it is a teleological venture, then it must be having certain purpose behind it. Okay, if teleological method is being adopted here, that means this very particular thing is going to have a particular objective behind it. Okay, if this is so, then what is the purpose of Plato's theory of education? The purpose here is again establishing the ideal state. Okay, and in the ideal state, who are going to rule? Those people who know the idea of ideal state. Who can know the idea of ideal state? Only the philosophers can know the idea of ideal state. Okay, so he is actually establishing the ideal state, attempting to establish the ideal state by coming out with this theory of education. Okay, so that is why it is being said that theory of education is a teleological venture of Plato. It is a teleological attempt by Plato. Now, idea of installing of the ideal state or achieving the ideal state is not the sole objective. Okay, or is not the only objective. Or you can say that establishment of the ideal state is not just one objective. Here, if you go about the details of ideal state, you will see various things here. So, for example, in ideal state, justice would prevail. Okay, so but you have learned that what is actually justice according to Plato? That is proper stationing and non-interference. If that has to happen, then rulers are going to rule, auxiliaries are going to guard the border, and they are going to be assigned with the task of security and police and law and order maintenance and all, and producers are going to indulge in production. So this theory of education is also going to fulfill that purpose also. So it is being Plato is being teleological here, not just because he wants to establish an ideal state, but this is going to be true for all other tasks that he is going to perform or he intends to perform. One of them being the establishment of justice in the society. Getting it? So theory of education is definitely going to be helpful in establishment of ideal state, but you should also relate ideal state with other theories that he has come out with. In this case, for example, you have studied the theory of justice. So theory of education is also teleological because of other reasons also, and that would include the establishment of justice in the society, harmony in the society. Okay, so theory of education will also ensure proper stationing and non-interference. We will see all that in detail. I'm just giving you the idea of it at this very stage. Theory of education would ensure that only philosophers become the rulers. Theory of education would also ensure that this ideal state gets its auxiliaries class, which is well trained in the military education, because that again is going to ensure, or through that only we are going to ensure proper stationing and non-interference. Okay, so this is what we need to understand about theory of education at the outset. Now coming to the detailed part of it. So here you can say that Plato's Republic is not merely an essay on the government. It is being claimed here. Okay, it is not merely an. I told you, the Republic is the most important work of Plato. So all the theories that we are are discussing here are to be found in his magnum opus, that is the Republic. Now, according to Rousseau is also one of the very ardent reader of Plato, and he was influenced by Plato to a good extent. According to Rousseau, Republic is a best treatise written on education. Okay, so Barker says that Republic is something which is to be meant or which is to be translated or which is to be understood by the Greek translation where it would mean justice. So the Republic is actually dealing with the justice good to a good extent. Okay, a great deal of discussion on justice is to be found in Republic. According to Rousseau, this the very same book is also the best treatise written on education. Okay, what happens that for Plato, state was also a pedagogical institution. When, if you recall my first lecture on Plato, then I told you that the defeat of Athens by Sparta actually had a lasting impact on Plato. So he is going to analyze everything that has gone wrong with Athens and every reason or every possible reason because of which Sparta actually succeeded in defeating the Athens. So he studied the Spartan system there. He studied what is wrong with the education, the system of education in Athens. And he found out that in Sparta, a state actually controls the education. So education is actually delivered by the state. So the Spartan state is actually a pedagogical state. Okay, a Spartan state is a pedagogical institution. So education is actually being controlled and it is being provided by the state. Whereas in Athens, if you recall, I have told you about the sophists who are going to charge fee by the from the people for imparting education. Plato is trying to replicate the example of Sparta, and here again he is trying to make the ideal state a pedagogical institution also, which is entrusted with the task of imparting education. So the scheme of education that he's coming out with is actually a very elaborate one. He was also impressed with another feature of his Spartan education, where women were also trained or were also given military education. And military education was compulsory in case of Sparta. Okay, it was part of mainstream education. So all those features which he liked most about the Spartan education, he made sure that it becomes part of the educational scheme of the ideal state. Okay, so that kind of detail you are going to see when we study about the theory of education of Plato here. Okay, so Rousseau says that Republic is the best treatise written on education. The object of Republic was to locate and therefore establish justice in the ideal state. Yes, that was one of the main object that that was one of the main intents and the objective of Republic. And that is why Barker says that Republic, the word should be actually understood in its Greek sense and not in Latin sense, where it would mean justice and not polity or state. So object of Republic was actually to establish or locate and therefore establish the justice in the ideal state. His scheme of education aimed precisely at that. I told you that the theory of education that Plato is coming out with is his teleological attempt. It is a teleological venture. Because it is a teleological venture, it is going to fulfill certain purpose. Okay, it is going to have certain definite objectives. Here, one very clear definite objective is definitely the idea of ideal state that is to be realized, or the installing of the ideal state, the installment of the ideal state, establishment of the ideal state. But another very important objective here is again but to locate and establish justice in the society. And that is something that you cannot actually completely separate from the first objective, that is establishment of ideal state, because ideal state by all means is also going to have justice. So there cannot be any ideal state without establishment of justice in it. Okay, in that sense both points are actually similar, but we need to actually point out this very point, this very this very objective in separately, that is the establishment of justice in the ideal state. Okay, so for Plato, social education is a means to social justice. Okay, social education, that is education at the societal level, is a means to attain justice at the level of society. It is therefore correct to say that education for Plato has been a solution to all the complex problems. Okay, yes. If you recall again the first lecture where I told you that Plato was convinced that until philosophers become king or king learn philosophy, there is no end to the predicament of human life, or there is no end to the problems of humanity. Now, Plato comes out with this kind of statement only because, with this kind of scheme to establish ideal state, only because he wants to end the predicament of society or human society. Now, education, as I told you, aims to establish the ideal state, and for that to happen, it needs to be designed in such a way that it also aims to end the predicament of humanity. So, for Plato, this very scheme of education is going to be a solution for all the complex problems in the society. The complex problems in the society at the time of Plato, which were realized by him, was this: that first, rulers were corrupt. Okay, okay. Then all politics, he was realized, all politics is evil if not managed well. Then third point was that education was in the hands of sophists. Fourth point, military education was absent. Fifth point, rulers were driven by private interest, okay, and ambitions. Then women were not provided with education, general and military education in particular. So these were the problems in society. These were actually not only the problems, they also became the factors for other problems in Athenian society. So the education, the scheme of education that he's actually coming out with is going to resolve all these very problems, and is going to resolve all these factors which become the reason for other problems. Okay. So Plato's theory of education is is an attempt to attack the evil at its very source. Okay, this is something that we are going to see. And Parker says that the education, the scheme of education, this is a very good statement. Please pay full attention. The scheme of education brings the soul into that environment which in each stage of its growth is best suited for its development. Okay, now understand it. Parker is saying that the scheme of education brings the soul into that environment which in each stage of its growth is best suited for its development. When we will see the details of the scheme of education of Plato, then you will realize that the stages in which this very education has this scheme, the whole scheme of education has been divided, or has been classified, is such that at different stages you will find uh, candidates belonging to different age groups, different category, being provided with a special kind of education which is suitable to that very age group, and is also suitable to that particular set of individuals, because they have particular set of virtues and particular dominant virtue in their soul. Okay, so that together ensures that that the soul of the individual brings, or it gets that very environment which is most congenial for its proper growth. Okay, Education, as I told you, is not a private enterprise for Plato. It is not a private enterprise for Plato, and that is why he detested sophist. And that is also the reason why he liked Spartan scheme of education, where state actually controlled all the education, where state was actually a pedagogical institution. It is public because it provides a moral diagnosis to the real elements. Okay, it is not a private enterprise because uh, it is a public enterprise because it is going to provide moral diagnosis to the real ailments. Okay, that is something that we are going to see. The scheme of education had both Athenian and Spartan influence. Now, Athenian influence was visible so far as the emphasis over the mental faculties were concerned. Okay, so mental faculties will involve the stress on philosophy, then mathematics, music, and Spartan influence would be visible, especially in military education. Okay, so these are the two different kinds of uh, elements which are going to be combined in Plato's scheme. Okay, so there were many things which were good in Athenian system of education. Those are going to be continued by Plato. Those features included the stress on philosophy, mathematics, and music, and some other things. They were actually related to the mental faculties, and Plato was of the opinion that this was actually one fault. This was something where Athens as a society went wrong or committed a mistake, where they ignored the physical education and concentrated exclusively on the mental education. Okay, that also, according to Plato, that was also one of the reasons why Sparta defeated Athens in Peloponnesian War. Okay, now next, you already know by this time that Spartan education system was state sponsored. Okay, Spartan education system was state sponsored. It had compulsory military education, as I told you. It had compulsory military education. It did not make a difference with regard to the gender. Okay, that is something which is very special if you think, if you consider the time period. We are talking about the before Christ era. So Spartan system of education made no difference with respect to gender, while Athenian system of education was in private hands and it did not have equality of opportunity for women. As I told you, these were the major lacunas in the society. It neglected physical education also. Athenian education, it neglected physical education also, and was directed towards developing logical and critical faculty of mind, as more focus was on studying philosophy, mathematics, literature, dialectics, music, and all. Okay, getting it? So these were the different differences when it came to the scheme of education between Sparta and Athens. Now, in his scheme of things, Plato is going to make all the corrections, and he is going to include all the teachings, all the elements that he liked in Spartan scheme of education. That is going to be the discussion in our next lecture. Thank you. If you like the video, if it was helpful, then you can subscribe. And if you go for any kind of subscription, any subscription plan, then you can apply this coupon code, that is Amit PS, to avail 10% discount. Thank you.